So you needed to have an in-between God who was a transcendent God, who's not God, Zeus, Jupiter.
Christians come often with the translation of the Aramaic was the Memra, and they say the Memra is like a own, the translation make it like your own person, like there's a Memra, there's a God, there's a spirit, and they make the claim, there's proof that the Targum showed us that there is the Memra is like a different God, or maybe a different type, I don't know how to explain.
This is the word you will have heard of. You ever heard of the term logos? Now everybody heard of it. Logos theology. Logos is very famous because it appears prominently in the first 18 verses of the book of John, which is called the prologue. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Greek word there is logos. What does that mean, the word? Now, the Aramaic word for this is Memra. Memra in Aramaic means a word. But what is this word business? What do you mean the word? Where does this come from? Now, this logos theology is all over the pagan world, all over the ancient world. I'm going to first tell you what it really means, and it's legitimate, and then the idea of logos being used in the New Testament was taken from a Jew, a very famous Jew, who lived at the time of Christianity. Most of you heard of a man named Philo, who came from North Africa. He came from Alexandria. His Hebrew name was Chaim. He wrote a lot. Philo was born in the year 20 BCE, and he died in the 50s. And a lot of his writings exist. He was not an Orthodox Jew, meaning he was religious, but he was a Hellenistic Jew. That means his views were completely oriented in Greek philosophy, which is very alien to Judaism, okay? I want you to follow this with me. Philo is living at the time when the New Testament is being written. He's living during the time of Jesus. He lives during the time of Paul. Of course, he doesn't write a word about Jesus or Paul or anything Christian. He doesn't mention it because it was just a very tiny... in fact, the people who say that Jesus never existed, who are called mythicists, often use the fact that Philo never mentions anything about Jesus or Christianity, and in the New Testament he was very popular. So what we're going to do is, this is a very, very sophisticated question, so we're going to first talk about what does this mean originally. So the term, word about HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really legitimate, but then like every thing that's legitimate, it could then be twisted, it could then be weaponized, it could be abused, and to fuel idolatry. So let's first talk about what it really means. And the Targum Onkelos use this word Memra, in Hebrew Devar, word. But what do you mean word? What are you talking about, Rabbi? So listen, this is really nice stuff, and you'll go really high together with me. This is how Jews get high. Other people got high this way. Jews get high by studying Torah. So we're going to study, what does this word mean? And by the way, if you think this is small, when we drink water, a glass of water, wenn man trinkt a glasel Wasser, did I say that correct? What bracha do we make? Say that louder, Nachemol. Shahakol, that everything came to being, Nihiyeh became, Bidvaro. What does Bidvaro mean? With his word, with his Memra. Ooh. Okay, so we're starting to go high. So it's a very important principle that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, when the Almighty created the world, how did he actually create? That means, what did he do? How did he shape things? How did he craft things? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the first thing God created is what? Or. light. For a very long time, people made fun of the Jews. And why did God create light first? He couldn't see in the dark? And not only that, to make the question stronger, the atheists used to go crazy with this. The sun is created on the fourth day. So the light is before the sun. So all the enemies of Torah used to make fun of the Torah and say, he's creating light first, the sun on the fourth day, the Torah. Now, because we possess discoveries made in the early 20th century by a Jew who could speak German very, very well, we now know that without light, you cannot have time. Light and time are so connected that the faster you move, time slows down. This is insane. Right? It's hard for us, it's not intuitive. So we now understand through science so much more about the Torah, and we want to give the Torah more kisses, more love, because we're going, wow, it's murdic. Now we understand that Hashem had to create light, not because he can't see in the dark. It's because without light, it's nicht du kein Licht, it's nicht du kein Zeit. Without light, there's no time. Mind-blowing. How did HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be his name, create light? But what did he do? Like the light has photons. What did he do? HaKadosh Baruch Hu simply uttered the word light or, and in that word contains whatever light is. And from the word came light. Do you understand? Hashem uttered the word or. Hebrew is one of really only two intrinsic languages. You're a language guy. Let me explain what an intrinsic language is. That means in the word is what it is. Let me show this to you in a different language so you'll get it. In the chemical language, in the language of chemistry, when we say that the water molecule is H2O, that's not just the word for the water molecule, but also that word conveys the atomic makeup of the water molecule, right? 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen makes water. So that means in H2O that's not just the name of water, that's what water is. Now it's not a real intrinsic language, why? Because there's nothing about the word hydrogen that has anything to do with the most plentiful element in the universe. Hydrogen is the most plentiful element in the universe, okay? That has nothing to do, that's a word really made up. But in Hebrew, that's not the case. That's why we want you to read Hebrew, because the truth is when you say, even Hashem understands German perfectly. I hear his German's fabulous. But when you are saying a blessing in Hebrew, you're not only talking the language of Hashem, you're actually creating something. You're using holy words. This is expressed in the book of Psalms, chapter 33, verse 6, that Hashem created the whole world with his word. And that's why the word comes up a lot. When Cyrus told the Jews that you have to go build the temple, in Ezra chapter 1, he said to fulfill the Devar Yirmiyahu, to fulfill the word of Jeremiah. What does he mean, word? Why don't you say fulfill what Jeremiah? The word means that Jeremiah, when he said it, it became a prophecy. That's what Devar is. It's really quite beautiful. So that's legitimate. Always know this, my dear brothers and sisters. There must be a saying in German like this, but every lie has to have a little truth. You have to know that. If it takes off, every lie has to have some truth from which it regenerates from. It needs the traction. It needs a little truth. Never forget that. So the concept of logos, which is in all kinds of idolatry, which they borrowed from us like everything, has a little truth in it. The word logos, we say Memra or Devar in Hebrew, means that this is the word of Hashem. Got it? Very simple. Nothing complicated. Always what I told you, my holy brothers and sisters, is the truth is usually simple and lies usually very, very complicated. I always told you that. Why? Because the Torah is not just written for geniuses. It's not just written for people doing dissertations. It's to every person, a man who's fixing a chair, he also has to have a relationship with God. If it sounds too complicated, so that's really all it is. Hashem utters the word, but that is Hashem uttering it, and from that word emerges whatever it is. Every Hebrew word, there's a meaning of why every letter is important, and that's why if the rabbi is reading from a Torah scroll on Shabbos and one letter is not there, he has to stop reading from that Torah, put it back, and get another Torah. Because if one word is missing or one word is added, you're destroying the world. You understand? It's not nice. It's got one letter, one word. No, you can't do that. You can only imagine in the ancient world how they would play with this logos business. Okay, so I want to explain to you a little bit about how idolatry works. I'm just going to look here. Okay, how idolatry works. Idolatry was generally highly dualistic. Dualistic means something very simple, and that is, in the ancient world, the people looked at the skies and they saw absolute perfection, and around them they saw broken bodies and broken wheels. And it was thought that this world was created by an inferior God. Because how do you explain all the suffering? Look, if modern medicine did not exist, would you be alive today? He said no. And I looked at him. How did I know? Because most of us will be dead. Why? Because just infection, people just died. And they died, they didn't even know why. That's what happened. That was the ancient world. If those of you who enjoy history, who read biographies of people who lived, Mozart, whoever, they all describe they was one of 7 children, but 4 of them didn't even make it to adulthood. The mother died giving birth. Just death was everywhere. So in the ancient world, this world was a zerbrochene Welt, a place of broken pain, suffering. What would you do for injuries and pain? I remember once I had a back pain. Don't ask. But I asked, they were able to solve it right away with one injection in the back. Mind-blowing. But I asked the doctor, what did they do 100 years ago? He said, people suffered. That was it. There was nothing you could do. People just suffered, miserably suffered, and that was the end of it. All right, so the question was, the people had, well, how did this God is a lower God, a demiurge was the term, and the higher gods really ran the planets. So what was in between? We're all zerbrochen. This is where Christianity comes out. You're a sinner, you're worthless, nothing you can do. Because that's how they thought. It made sense. We're all garbage. We're all falling apart. All zerbrochen. No one brushed their teeth. They took a shower once every 6 years. It was a nightmare. I made that part up. But anyways. So you needed to have an in-between God who was a transcendent God, who's not God, Zeus, Jupiter, who ran the planets, but the God of this world is very low down. If you were Gnostic, it was really evil. But it was an inferior God, and what was the intermediator? You hear Timothy, Paul saying there's one God, and one mediator between God and men, that's Jesus Christ. Well, where did he get that from? This is all Greek thinking. That's the logos, that's the in-between. What do Christians do? They need to fire that up. So they go to the Targum, which translates Memra, which it means word. They say, aha, the ideas that we find in the New Testament, it's completely glatt kosher because the Targum uses it. That's where it's really from.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא וואה